thing I don't have to cook myself. I'm sick of cooking and I've only just begun. My kids don't like what I make. One calls it slop. Isn't that harsh? Well, I make her eat it first. Finish your slop and give it back. Oh, really?
I want to remind everyone to make sure that you speak into your mic because the is not picking it up. So, oh, that's actually
Response.
dang. I didn't mean for that to come up.
Good evening. We'll get started this evening, Thursday, May 9th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. And this is a meeting of the Committee of the Whole of the Town Board of the Town of Waukesha. Spend just a little minute here to try to outline what we're going to do. This is a little bit different than what we have done before. And what it is an opportunity to meet the entirety of the board in a little less formal setting than the regular meeting is. This meeting is being audio and video recorded, so it's available on YouTube, live streamed, and it's in the library then for anybody to go back and take a look at. We're not going to be taking minutes tonight. We're not going to be taking any formal action or motions. It's going to be a conversation. It'll be with board members, staff as appropriate, not so much public involvement. We're at one topic tonight, which we'll introduce in a minute. The thought is if this works fairly well, that we will do these fairly frequently. There's even a proposed schedule for the ones forthcoming, so there'll be one topic at a time. The topic for tonight is discuss consolidation of our incoming overhead electrical services and emergency generator, and I'll spend just a minute to kind of outline where I think we're at and where we need to go, and then we'll open it up for discussion. The project to consolidate incoming electrical services and emergency generator goes back to 2011, so that's been 7 to 8 years in the making. It serves no useful purpose tonight to dwell on why we're at where we're at. We want to try to find a way to move forward. There are some documents that we can look at and talk about. When this project was looked at first back a number of years ago, it involved two things. The town actually retained an independent electrical engineering consultant by the name of XL Engineering out of Fond du Lac. I know Sean is going to be able to project some things when we get to it if you want to look at it. I think all the board members, you've got a copy of some set of preliminary drawings, of 4 drawings, and again emphasizing those were preliminary, but they were about how services could be consolidated. There are at least 3 services or 3 or 4 meters. There are multiple services onto the property here. There are overhead services, so there's kind of a spaghetti of wiring in back here, and that kind of goes hand in hand with the need that I think many realize for an emergency generator for emergency power. I mean, I'll just frame some of the big picture questions, not in any particular order, but a decision at some point in time needs to be made with the emergency generator. What is to be connected to it, connected loads? I mean, it could be as little as only doing overhead doors and that type of thing to doing the entirety of the town hall building complex. Any sizing of a generator, I think in my opinion, needs to look downstream at future expansion of the town hall complex here. I mean, projects that have been considered in preliminary work, addition to the fire station, new public works building, anything that would be done, we'd be remiss if we didn't consider those things. The drawings, and maybe even as we're flashing through those, we can come up to it. I mean, that first page I think is mostly text. There's one here that I believe is a demolition drawing, and you can see on some of that, I don't know whether we can do it with the pointer thing, but there's a pole down there, which is on the south side of the property. Overhead pole has, pole-mounted transformers, and then there's wiring comes into the building here. It goes into the public works building, goes over to the compactor. So this is a preliminary drawing of a demolition to get rid of the overhead wiring, then just go to the next one quickly. And some of this gets pretty deep in the weeds a little bit. Appreciate doing it, but this was a concept for this. Actually showed, I think, a pad mounted transformer. They might be pole mounts, but it's basically with going on underground service to the building here. This again was a concept, showed an emergency generator, I think, here north of the public works building. I mean, there are multiple advantages, disadvantages, location for that type of thing. I think that even referenced someplace a 50 kW generator hasn't been sized. This was then hooking some things back up. This predated the work that was done by the architectural firm that the town hired 2 years ago to do some master planning. So that's there. There's one more drawing after that, I think, that gets really pretty deep into some stuff. There are riser diagrams and stuff. I mean, it's electrical engineering type of stuff. We're not going to get too deep into that tonight. And then the other documents you have, and I'll pause here and maybe tick it on, but I was also able to unearth back in 2011, and impressive that We Energies could even dig this information out, but they had done some very, very preliminary crude engineering, and I think we might even have exhibits of those. We didn't put those up. Well, it's not to worry. Town board members have those, but they prepared some preliminary drawings and so forth for consolidating those electrical services. I think they did some preliminary pricing. We don't have that. So open this up for discussion in a minute. We need to move this project along. My belief is that we need to have an electrical engineer help us either continue with Excel engineering or find another electrical engineer. This, I think, needs to be put eventually to public bid, but we need to get on with the project. So that was a bit long-winded. I'll pause there and let anybody jump into the conversation. And again, it's a discussion. The last thing I should mention, we will finish a few minutes before 7 o'clock because we'll start the joint town board and plan commission meeting promptly at 7 o'clock. So jump in.
Okay, I'll start. I think this is the first step to get a facilities campus that we need to do in the back here started. I think if we're going to do this, we should put the service underground. I mean, that's the proper thing to do, I think. Get it centralized and then from there feed out, because like right now we've got how many meters out there that we're paying? 3 meters out there that we're paying service, extra service on those. We can consolidate it into 1 meter, would save the town some money right there. I think we'd also need to look at, you know, kind of the campus back there where we want to go with some certain buildings so that when we do put the underground service in, we're only tearing the driveway up back up here just once and not later on deciding that now we need to bring some underground service to another building that we didn't plan on before. So I think that's something that we should probably take into consideration too, is to plan that part of it out also at the same time.
So we have 3 meters, there's 3 separate extra charges per meter? Isn't it by the amount of electricity that you use?
No, in the past, there's a basic charge for the meter, whether you use the electricity or not, and then anything over that is normal kilowatt. The way on our place, that's how we pay. If we use nothing there, it's still a charge for the meter.
Can't be very much.
I don't know, that depends on the service you got. I think commercial, residential, they're all different rates.
I would think that would be something we'd want to know.
Certainly that's information that can be provided. I think, from my perspective, a bigger picture than that, and why I think we need the resources of an electrical engineer is if we have all of these separate services. I mean, there's a separate service to the existing public works building out there now. I would think we'd want to consider hooking that up to the emergency generator so overhead doors could be opened in power outage. If we want to do that, it may very well be that it'd be prudent or necessary to go to a single underground service instead of these combined services in order to basically efficiently be able to hook up an emergency generator. That's a question for an electrical engineer. I have some knowledge of electrical engineering. I don't profess to have a great amount of expertise, but that's why we need, I think, some professional assistance in that. And I think we need to have a discussion, and we could wait on that discussion until we got an electrical engineer involved that showed us options. I would be leaning Depending on the cost involved, I would be leaning to hooking up more rather than less on the campus here. But again, that's going to be based on recommendation. But I think that's part of a discussion we ought to have as to what we might want to try to hook up.
I don't know, in my opinion, I don't know why it would be necessary to just consolidate them. For it to look nice, that's great. I mean, I run a building that we've got 8 different meters, and when the power went out 3 weeks ago, only a portion of the building was out. In my opinion, that was more efficient. The rest of the building operated.
Well, it's not about appearance. I mean, one of the other things we've got with that overhead wiring, the project that was embarked on last year to build that new public works building out there, that couldn't be built that way without relocating that overhead wiring because it was drifting right across that building. That wasn't even part of the contractor's proposal. That was left for work by owner. So part of it is the fact that some of that complicates our ability even to do things back there with all that overhead wiring.
Would an electrical contractor have to know our plans for his future buildings right off the bat, or can he come in and lay something out ahead of time or not?
No, an electrical engineer, we would be advised to give them at least some kind of awareness as to what we might be contemplating adding to the facility if it's things that we wanted to hook up loads. I mean, if you look at these electrical engineering drawings, the proposed sizing, and that would have to be verified, but the proposed sizing was a 400 amp service. But an electrical engineer would look at loads and make some reasonable accommodation for additional loads before that final service sizing was done.
I do believe certain generators, you can run them in a series circuit also. You can run certain ones in a series circuit for adding on in the future. Our town hall does need something.
Maybe to kind of move the discussion along, and I know this is quite a bit to digest, but I'm going to suggest that we need to retain an electrical engineer to help identify options, put together plans and specs for competitive bidding. Is anybody completely opposed to approaching it in that manner?
Well, at this point, I wouldn't support spending any money on an electrical engineer to give us an idea of something we're not even sure of. I mean, I haven't seen the plans for a DPW building or bunkhouse or that, so we're gonna say, let's get a plan to consolidate all of our electrical that hasn't been an issue and pay money for that? I'm sorry, but I can't support that.
Well, let me, I guess, ask it this way. It's been in the capital plan for at least the last 2 and maybe the last 3 years, forget about 2011, it's part of the capital plan for this year. How do we move ahead?
I would start with step 1. If we're talking about a DPW building, let's get that finalized first. Let's not figure out the electrical before we're looking at a building. May have no relevance.
How do you put a building up, though, if you don't know where the service is gonna be for that? And you're gonna upgrade it, you're gonna put up another helter-skelter service to that building with a new building? Don't you wanna upgrade your electrical service to match it, plus a generator, and do that all at one time? Instead of doing a helter-skelter like we got back here right now with the service running to this building, service running to that building? That's not very efficient in my book.
How is it not efficient? Does it cost us more money the way it is? You're saying an extra meter charge that we don't even know what that cost is. So we've got 2 extra meters. I don't think that's a huge cost savings.
Well, I guess let's ask it this way. If we were to, let's say that was first out of the box, a new public works building, you'd then put a new overhead electrical service to that new public works building?
I guess it all depends on the scope of that building. We haven't even gotten that far yet,
Well, it's got to have electricity to it somehow or other.
I would assume.
So are you going to put a new overhead electrical service, and then are you going to hook up anything in that building to the emergency generator? I mean, I think those are the bridges you got to cross.
Yeah, I would think we would cross those first. I'm not in favor of an emergency generator for the DPW building. To open the doors,
What about for the town hall and the fire department?
depends on the scope of that generator. I don't necessarily think we need one for the town hall.
If there was any natural disaster, where would they set up Red Cross or anything?
You really think they're gonna set it up here?
Well,
For
they
the
would
town?
for the town of Waukesha.
We've operated for how many years out of here and we haven't had an emergency generator? And now we need that? The way the technology's gone? I can't support that. I'm in favor of a generator to open doors if that's what we're looking at, but that's a whole different project.
I think it goes back to what we're talking about here, is whether we hire an engineer to decide some of these questions and answer some of these questions that we've brought up here. And we're never gonna get those by sitting here talking about it. I guess if we're gonna go plan ahead and go move forward, we can find out how much a generator is gonna cost to run the whole complex here, or just open doors. But I really think that we need to open doors for the fire department. And if we have a disaster here, I think the DPW would like to have their doors open so they can get their equipment out to maybe handle some trees that are down in roads and things like that. Not that it's not happened before, and hopefully it never has to happen in the future, but you gotta be prepared for those things, not plan for, you gotta plan for disaster. It's the way things usually are in this day and age.
If we wanted to plan for disaster and open doors, we could probably do that for a couple of $100 a door. I mean, if the goal was truly to get doors open when we're without power, if that was the concern, rather than a multi-tens of thousands or maybe $100,000 generator set up, if the real concern was getting doors open, we could get doors open for probably a couple of $100 a door. I'm pretty sure with the technology in today's world that there's electric garage door openers that come with battery backup. So if that's the concern, I'm pretty sure we could get the doors open if that's truly what we wanted to do.
I guess let me go at it another way. We as a town board have had the emergency generator and the service upgrade in the capital plans for the last several years. And I guess I thought when the board adopted those capital plans unanimously and nobody ever spoke about it, I guess I assumed that people were on board with that. Did I read something wrong? I mean, anybody wants to jump into the conversation, go ahead. Again, we're not taking any formal action tonight, but I think before we close this up, I think we ought to at least kind of go down the line and take a straw poll and see who's in favor, at least taking the next step to engage We Energies further in discussion, and at least to get a proposal or proposals from electrical engineers to look at moving the project ahead. And I think at least we ought to take a, I don't want to cut off the discussion, but before we're done, I think we ought to a little bit take a straw poll on that and see what the sense of the majority of the board is. But let's have additional discussion before we go ahead and do that.
My opinion is, I think we ought to move forward with this. We've got a lot of questions, we've got a lot of opinions. None of this is backed up by any facts, it's all opinions. I think we need to get somebody here that can give us some true facts, some real direction, whether we should go ahead with one thing or the other. But at this point, we have a lot of questions to answer, and I don't think anybody here is evidently qualified to answer those.
I'll agree with Bob on that. We should do something as a government body, government building for backup power.
I guess I'll pose it as a question, and again, we're not taking any formal action tonight, but in terms of getting some additional information or proposals from We Energies or from an electrical engineer or electrical engineers, would anybody object if the clerk treasurer administrator Nicholas and I gathered up some additional information for consideration? Does anybody object to that?
I won't support spending any money on it at this point, no.
I didn't say spending money, I said gathering information.
And you heard what I said. I would not support spending any money on it.
Okay.
I'd support gathering information. I mean, that's what our job is here, is to find out and make, informed, educated guesses at what we're doing and get all the facts out here and find out what we can do.
Mike, would you support at least gathering additional information without expending any money?
We keep talking about no decisions will be made and no action will be taken, and we're 20 minutes into this and we're talking about straw polls and going down the line and getting opinions and making decisions about gathering information, and I don't quite understand how this is not taking any action, but.
All right, well, if your preference, but we can cut it off now and put this on the agenda for formal discussion and action. Is that the pleasure of the group? That's okay. I'm just trying to find a way to see if we can move things ahead or find out whether there's any consensus to move things ahead. I mean, if it's the pleasure of the group, we can simply, we're going to be done here in a couple minutes anyway. We can just simply suspend the discussion and put this on for formal discussion and possible action at the next meeting. That be the pleasure of the group? Does anybody object to that? Okay, then unless anybody's got anything more to say, we'll put it on the agenda for discussion and possible action. And let's put that on the agenda for if there's room on the agenda and stuff, let's put it on the agenda for the meeting on the 23rd of May. Okay. All right, unless there's anything more, we'll adjourn the meeting of the Committee of the Whole. And we